On Tech News Today, Apple's working on a giant iPad, plus Dropbox drops the price of its online storage by 90%. And some Apple ads are getting bigger while some Facebook ads are getting smaller. We'll explain everything. Tech News Today is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, August 27th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Welcome to the show. I'm Mike Elgan. With me is Jason Howell of All About Android fame. Hey, Jason, how's it going? Easy morning this morning.
Oh, yeah, this has been kind of rough. We had a power outage in the studio, a couple hours, and it's wreaked some havoc on some of our technology here. So
havoc happens. Now, yesterday on your show, All About Android, you guys were talking about the name of the upcoming version of Android, and it's looking, there's a lot of evidence it's going to be lemon meringue pie.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the lemon meringue pie controversy?
I like lemon meringue pie as a dessert. I'm not opposed to the lemon meringue pie, the LMP, but lollipop just kind of seems very googly and seemed to be at the top of everyone's list. I'm still holding out for Laffy Taffy. We'll see what happens.
I know you've been pushing your Laffy Taffy agenda for quite a while. I've been more of a Lifesaver person. I have the feeling that they may have approached these for another Kit Kat-like sort of deal, and it didn't work out, so now they're going with something generic like...
Yeah. They're always going to be looking for that deal now.
Exactly. Right. Eventually, that'll be their main source of income.
Yep.
With the sugar-based dessert companies. Well, we'll keep an eye on the lemon meringue pie. I was going to go buy a lemon meringue pie at the restaurant down the street.
You really should.
Today for a prop, but I think I'll do it afterwards and just have a prop for myself.
There we go.
And our guest co-anchor today is Parmy Olson. Welcome to you, Parmy Olson, writer at Forbes. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Now, you've written about Snapchat and their valuations and all kinds of things around Snapchat. And today we're learning that their valuation may be up to around $10 billion, which would make them one of the most highly valued startups ever. I mean, is this crazy talk, or do you think this company is really worth $10 billion?
Well, these are the kinds of valuations we've been hearing for other names like Uber. And $10 billion already came up a few weeks ago when there was the reports that Alibaba was in talks with Snapchat about investing as well. So it's not the first time we've heard 10 billion, but of course, yes, it's a huge number and a huge leap from 3 billion, which was the number that we were hearing about last December when Facebook was interested in buying them, and which they snubbed. And now, of course, the founders look pretty smart for doing that.
When they turned down $3 billion from Facebook, I thought they were crazy because it just seems to me like a feature, not a product.
Right. But I mean, there was another report that came out yesterday saying they've now got 100 million active users, which is huge. That puts them up in the leagues with some of the top messaging apps, with Instagram, kind of in the same leagues as Twitter and some of these other players, having not been around for very long at all. So it sort of looks, although they haven't made a penny in revenue yet, it remains to be seen if some of the plans they've got in place for advertising, money transfer is another thing that's been talked about. Content discovery, whether any of those things, when they start to roll them out, actually do make money and make that $10 billion valuation actually start to make a little bit more sense, just a little.
It's really incredible to see them come from nothing and to get a prospective valuation like that. Very interesting. Let's jump right into the news. Apple is planning to offer a giant iPad. Production is set to start by March, according to unnamed Bloomberg sources. Steve Kovach is a senior tech editor for Business Insider and joins us now to talk about the giant iPad. How you doing, Steve Kovach?
Good. How are you?
Now, no tablet larger than the current 9.7-inch iPad has ever succeeded wildly in the market. Why would Apple want to ship what is essentially a 13-inch iPad?
Yeah, what I read this as, it's a play to really tap into that market that devices like the Surface and other Windows 8 tablets haven't been able to, and that's create like this dream device that replaces both your tablet and your laptop. And, you know, we've already seen that iPad sales are declining, and part of the reason is, one big theory behind that is that people are realizing, hey, I don't need a laptop and a tablet and a phone when the laptop and the phone does just fine. So they're kind of, the way I read this as, It's this giant device, kind of like with more focus on productivity. And if you kind of like read the tea leaves of the things Apple has been saying and doing lately, you can really see it as sort of an enterprise play. You know, Tim Cook has said that he does 80% of his work on the iPad. There's that big IBM deal where IBM is going to start selling iPads to big companies. And then you start seeing Microsoft Office finally arrive on the iPad. And then innovative startups like Quip, you know, they're figuring out how to do documents and so forth differently on a tablet. So there's this real big push to make to really fulfill that promise that we got 4 years ago when the first iPad came out, that this could be a new productivity tool that will eventually eat into your regular laptop usage, which hasn't quite happened yet. So a big screen could really solve that.
I have a question for you, Steve.
Sure.
Just curious, you know, Microsoft has already kind of done this with the Surface Pro 3, saying this is the tablet that unapologetically wants to replace your laptop. So if Apple's kind of doing the same, what does it have to do differently beyond just making the tablet bigger in terms of design, aesthetics, and things like that?
Right. Well, look at the problem with the Windows 8 software. You know, you're essentially running into two different modes. You got the desktop mode for your office and productivity, and then you have the Metro modern UI for touch. And that's really confusing for users. You're constantly bouncing back between, you have two browsers, you have different versions of different apps, and that's not ideal. And it you know, it's just, you know, it doesn't really work that well.
Right.
So there's already been hints that iOS is going to start getting more Windows 8-like, letting you run split screen apps. You know, there have been like some hidden things in the code that you'll be able to run two apps side by side. That's great for productivity. And again, I go back to like now every iPad comes with iWork software, so Pages and Numbers and all those things right free when you buy an iPad. So, you know, they're really making this productivity focus. And I think iOS can change to really adapt to that.
Besides productivity and the enterprise, another great place for these giant iPads is in the education market. They are losing ground nowadays, it seems like to me, to the Chromebook, which has got a keyboard. It's kind of more compelling in multiple ways, one of which is cost, another of which is the fact that it's cloud-based and super easy to maintain. There's no viruses and so on. And so they have to do something to thrill the schools again, because people are canceling orders. LA just canceled a $1 billion order, although that was for reasons other than the desirability of the Chromebook. But you know, I've always believed, been writing about this since I think 2006 or so, that the future of desktop computing is iPad-like touch connectivity combined with voice and so on. And I've also believed that Apple has believed that as well and has been slowly, they know that the hardest thing to do is to change user behavior, so they've been slowly acclimating people to the idea, not only changing iOS, as you mentioned, but also changing OS X with all kinds of tablet-like stuff inside. Microsoft seems to know that as well. They tried the Metro UI, didn't work out so well so far. But it seems clear to me that within you know, within 5 years or so, you know, every executive will have essentially an iPad the size of, you know, a big screen TV in their office that pivots and so on. Or do you think it's too late? Do you think we're kind of stuck with keyboards and mice forever? We've had them for 35 years. Do you think it's possible to actually change human behavior and what people will accept?
I don't think it's too late. I mean, you totally nailed it. OS X has been getting more iOS-like for the last, what, 2 or 3 years or so. You know, we're seeing the same apps appear on iOS, the same kind of notification center and so forth. So yeah, they are kind of training us and weaning us off the desktop because they really do believe this is the future of computing, as you do. And, you know, you can also look at it, you know, there have been reports for years that eventually MacBooks will start running on ARM processors instead of Intel. So that's another hint at how they're thinking, you know, 5 or 6 years down the line, and how we're going to be computing then. And I think it's really interesting that no one has quite nailed it. You know, we all would love that kind of dream device that acts as everything in one, you know, a tablet and a MacBook or a laptop, and no one's like really created that perfect solution. So, you know, this is kind of a chance for Apple to redefine what a laptop can be and a tablet can be.
Presumably, they also have to try and get the physical accessories right as well, because we're so used to just, you know, typing on a tablet. But the idea of somehow maybe taking the case that flips over and turning that into a keyboard, I'd love to see what Apple and Johnny Ive eventually come up with to make that tablet-style keyboard that makes it easy to use the tablet as a laptop to help us make that transition as part of that user experience.
Yeah, the form factors can be interesting. I mean, that's another big promise or problem with the Surface. You know, they got up on stage for the Surface Pro 3 and said, "Oh, it sits in your lap fine." It doesn't. You know, so there's a big problem with that. It can't replace your laptop. It simply can't. For most people, so, you know, Microsoft fans were totally arguing with on that. But the bigger point is, yeah, the form factor is very important, and it can't just be a big iPad because no one wants to lug that thing around. It has to do more than just having a giant screen.
Right. It really has to feel like you are replacing the laptop when you actually use it.
Right. Yeah, and you know, it's, you know, the theme has always been at Apple, they expect the iPad business to eventually eat up their MacBook business, and this would be a huge step forward in that.
Right.
Well, either way, I definitely want a 13-inch iPad. That sounds like an awesome product to me. Steve Kovach writes at businessinsider.com, and you can follow on Twitter at Steve Kovach. His last name is spelled K-O-V-A-C-H. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve Kovach.
Thanks for having me.
All right, in just a sec, we're going to tell you about Dropbox's newly dropped price. But first, I want to tell you about Gazelle. It is iPhone season. The next iPhone is coming like a train, and we are all tied to the tracks in terms of our old devices. Now, they're going to be declining in value the closer we get to that announcement. And after the iPhone 6 announcement, the prices of old iDevices will plummet. And that's why you want to go to Gazelle.com. That's Gazelle.com, and figure out what your old iPhone or other mobile phone or tablet is worth. And that's Gazelle.com. That is the place to go. Just go there, enter in your device, indicate its condition, and they will give you a price. Right now, we're looking at an iPhone 5S, 64 gigabytes, locked to AT&T. $345 is the unlocked price. $295 is the locked price. That's a lot of money toward your next iPhone 6 if you're an iPhone user. But you really have to do this, and they lock it in for 30 days. I love that feature because, you know, again, the prices are always declining, and now we're going to be sliding toward that declining price as we get closer to the iPhone 6 launch. If you lock in the price now, you'll get that price even if you send your phone 30 days from now. Gazelle has paid more than $170 million to more than 1 million customers, and the reason is that it's super, super easy to do. They send you a box, you put your phone in the box or your tablet in the box, put the sticker they send you on the outside of the box, that's all shipping is paid for and everything, and then you just send it back, and you get paid fast by check, PayPal, or if you use the Amazon gift card option, it's an extra 5%, and that is really nice because it's free money. What's your iPhone worth? Take a minute, go to Gazelle.com and find out. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Dropbox today lowered the price of storage by 90%. Until today, Dropbox Pro users were charged $10 a month for 100 gigabytes, but starting today, they get a terabyte for the same price. The company also announced a view-only option for shared folders and expiration dates for shared file links. Roberto Baldwin writes for The Next Web and joins us now. Hello, Roberto.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great. Now, does this mean that Dropbox is losing users, or at least fearing the loss of users, to the likes of Google and Microsoft?
You know, I think there's some concern as to sort of the storage wars that are going on for cloud storage systems. I mean, if Google is going down to $10, it's hard to talk somebody who just wants to store their items in the cloud into paying, you know, $10 for 100 gigs. If Google can give you the same amount for 1 terabyte. So Dropbox dropped the price, and what they're really hoping to compete on is the services, which is, you know, being able to have expiration dates on shared files, password protect folders, and of course, allowing people not to edit files or edit items inside of folders, which is actually great if you've ever shared a folder with someone who doesn't quite understand Dropbox and starts deleting items out of it. This should stop that.
Roberto, how much do you think this is a response to the competitive pressures, particularly from Apple with I/O8? They talked about iCloud Drive, and people were talking about that as a Dropbox killer. You think this has been in the works for a while at Dropbox?
Yeah, I think it's been in the works in a while. And I think it's pushed more probably by Google and Box than Apple. I mean, it's difficult. I just don't trust Apple as a cloud company. You know, I have iCloud and I have 5 gigabytes of storage, but I don't. How do you get to that storage? How do I get to those saved files. With Dropbox, it's right there on your hard drive. With Google Drive, it's right there on your hard drive. You can, it's easily accessible. So, in the sort of the cloud storage wars, Apple is still kind of playing catch up, as far as I'm concerned.
Wired had an interesting perspective on this. They pointed out that in 1981, a hard drive that held 10 megabytes cost nearly $3,000.
Wow.
At those prices, a gigabyte cost $300,000. A gigabyte, not a terabyte. A gigabyte cost $300,000. Again, 1981. And the prices keep dropping on cloud storage. Roberto, do you think the price will eventually, or soon even, get to zero? Are we getting to the point where online storage is just free?
For companies like, especially for Dropbox, they're going to have to charge something. So they're looking more to offering services as opposed to the storage. A terabyte of storage is, there's no way I can fill up a terabyte because I can't sync that to my computer, which is sort of where we're going with cloud storage, where you're going to have more storage available in the cloud for $10 a month or $5 a month or whatever, that you can't actually sync to any devices you have in your house, because a lot of us are using, smaller, faster SSD drives in our computers. So, you have to compete on services, and that's what Dropbox is trying to do. And you got to charge money if you want a Dropbox. Google can do, whatever it wants because it's swimming in ad dollars. They could make 1 terabyte free if they really wanted to. So it's, Dropbox has to find something to differentiate itself against the rest of the market.
Roberto, so based on what you've experienced, you said you've tried iCloud, not too pleased with it. Based on what you've seen from the offerings from Google and Box and Apple and Dropbox, would you say Dropbox has the best service, or what do you think the best service is coming from?
I'm a big fan of Dropbox. I think they had serial syncing. Now they have you can sync. While it's syncing up to the cloud, it's also syncing to another computer at the same time. And these are, Dropbox is really pushing forward to make sure that its services are more user-friendly, which I appreciate. Mm-hmm. And I use Dropbox not just for personal, but also for work. And I need something that I believe is solid. So for right now, Dropbox seems to be working the best for me. Your mileage may vary. Google Drive is nice, but it doesn't. It just seems it's just a drive on in the cloud, whereas Dropbox is really kind of bringing these services, and the ability to password protect items is great.
Now they also announced a remote wipe feature, so if your mobile device gets stolen, you can erase the files that are on that are mirrored to that device. That sounds like a great feature, but should we be freaked out about that? That essentially gives hackers the ability to erase the files on your devices, theoretically, if they can guess your password. They might be able to do it from the cloud. Is that a concern, and has Dropbox addressed that concern?
I hadn't really thought about that, actually. I think that is a concern. Anytime, any password, anything is hackable. Every time I see something that a company says their stuff isn't hackable, they're either lying to their customers or they're lying to themselves. And so, having, if it's just one password, then Dropbox really needs to worry about security, especially when you need 2-point auth. If you need to authorize it with another device before it wipes, maybe they should start looking into that.
Roberto Baldwin writes at thenextweb.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at STRNGWYS. Thank you so much for joining us, Roberto.
Thank you.
Apple is getting more intrusive with its mobile advertising. The company announced yesterday a pre-roll video option and full-screen ads designed to be viewed in apps. Ginny Marvin wrote about the news for Marketing Land and joins us now. Welcome, Ginny.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, Apple is all about user experience, but what will these new ad formats do to that experience? How do you think users will react?
Well, there are 2 new ad formats. One is full screen video, and that comes in 15, 30, and 60-second units. So essentially designed for brands to be able to translate their ads designed for TV to mobile. And the second ad unit is a full screen interstitial ad. And that, essentially comes up when you're kind of in between doing things on an app, and it takes up the full screen. So how users will react, I think, it's going to be an interesting question. I think users are, to some extent, getting more accustomed to brand-oriented advertising across all of our screens. And, there may be a lot more actual benefit to seeing a video ad than seeing a banner that hovers down below at the bottom of the screen, taking up real estate that you can't click out of as easily.
Ginny, I have a question just to step back a little bit. How well does Apple's iAd actually stack up against the big competitors in mobile advertising like Flurry and InMobi?
Great question. So Apple, when it came out with iAd in 2010, came out with a $1 million buy-in, upfront buy-in, and has quickly had to step back from that. Overall, they have, a roughly anywhere from 6% down to 3%, depending on where eMarketer's pegging it. Share of the global marketing, global.
Having some Skype issues.
Mobile ad market. So it pales in comparison certainly to, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. So it pales in comparison to, a Google, Facebook. And so they've really kind of struggled with getting a foothold in the mobile ad market.
Now, Ginny, Recode just reported a few minutes ago that the iWatch will definitely be announced on September 9th. And assuming that report is correct, do you think there's any possibility that we're going to see advertising on the smartwatch?
I think there's certainly a possibility, right? I mean, I think with any of these devices coming out, advertising has to be a piece of the puzzle that people are always thinking of, even if the product designers aren't thinking of it. The ad people certainly are. So yes, I would absolutely think that that's going to be a place for advertising.
Ginny Marvin writes at marketingland.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Ginny Marvin. Thank you so much for joining us, Ginny.
Thank you.
In other mobile advertising news, Facebook has unveiled a unique new offering that enables advertising to be targeted according to the speed or bandwidth of each user's phone. That means video ads will be served up only to people on good 4G connections, while people on 2G connections will get text-based ads. The new offering works across all Facebook's ad units. Parmy, Olson, this is a great idea, I think. And, of course, this is a really great idea for the emerging market where many people have less powerful phones, slower connections, and still are a big potential advertising revenue opportunity for advertisers. What do you think about this? Is this just a natural extension of what should be happening anyway? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the end, advertisers have to work with the infrastructure that's available. If the bandwidth isn't there, you absolutely don't want to push a video on someone. In the end, it just irritates them more than anything else. So, to target ads to people based on the bandwidth that their devices can take makes perfect sense.
Now, Facebook points out that the United States, Canada, and Europe accounted for 72% of the $2.7 billion Facebook generated in second quarter ad revenue. That's only 38% in terms of people. That's only 38% of the 1.3 billion people who checked in on Facebook each month. So clearly they want to expand into markets outside the U.S., Canada, and Europe. And this is one way to do that in both directions, really. If you have really high-definition video, you can serve that up in Japan and South Korea and other places where they have really fast connections and really high-quality phones. And you can also spread out across the globe where people might have slower connections and still reach them with advertising, maybe even advertising better connections on different carriers.
Right.
Now, Facebook already offers the option to reach people based on the type of device they use. So, for example, the advertisers can choose to serve up ads just on tablets or something like that. One of the companies using this service already is Vodafone in India. So they're already the carrier's using it as an advertising vehicle. And this begins today, and it's via the Ad Create tool, the Power Editor, and the API all together. Parmy, Olson, do you suppose that all of the mobile ad companies are going to just copy this and roll this out sometime soon?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, particularly in developing countries where a lot of people are still using feature phones, or they're using smartphones, and the carriers that they're on just don't provide 4G yet or LTE. And yet those are growing economies, and there are growing middle classes in those kinds of countries in the developing world. And so that's certainly a good ad market out there. And so this is really an example of, you know, an advertising play that comes down to earth a little bit, and targets not just based on typical behavioral profiling that advertisers do based on who you are and your interests, but also just on, you know, what kind of ads your device can actually show.
Well, speaking of high-quality promotion, Microsoft is marketing the Surface Pro 3 tablet in Australia by sending schools life-size cardboard models of the tablet. What's interesting is that a small section of the screen, the fake cardboard screen, is actually a real screen that displays MP4 videos to simulate what an actual Surface Pro 3 screen might look like and how it might work. The tablet was released in the United States and Canada on June 20th, but it will be launched in Australia and 24 other countries tomorrow. We're looking at the video here, Parmy, Olson. This is a pretty elaborate marketing ploy. I think this thing is probably more expensive to create than some of their tablet competitors.
Yeah, I'd love to know how much it costs to actually make one of those things, and how many of them they've made and where they've made them. It's a big investment, and interesting that they chose Australia as well as a place to try and get into the school system and use that particular avenue. Maybe they just want to see how effective that is in Australia, and if it works out, roll out the same cardboard ploy in other parts of the U.S. or Europe.
And if there's anyone in Australia in the education market that can get their hands on this and wants to send me one so I can wave it around in the air, I'll mention your name on the air, and I'll also send you a box full of Twit swag, cups, T-shirts, you name it, maybe even Jason's personal phone. I don't know what I'll send you, but I'll send you something really cool in exchange. This is really cool, and I want one of these. I want one of these even more than I want an actual Surface Pro 3.
Yeah, right.
Our TNT fan of the day is Michael Lopez from Florida, who posted this picture on Google+. He listened to the show while enjoying a rum and Coke on a flight to Atlanta. That sounds like a good way to enjoy the show. I think everybody ought to listen to Tech News Today with a rum and Coke. Rum, Coke, and Tech News Today. The perfect beverage. Well, how do you watch or listen to TNT? Just take a picture of your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowDoYouWatchTNT, and we will find it. You can also search for the hashtag HowDoYouWatchTNT, and you can see them all for yourself right now. And that is the Tech News Today. Parmy Olson, thank you so much for being our guest co-anchor today.
Thank you.
All right, now you wrote a really brave book. I thought it was a really journalistically very brave book. You wrote a book about the Anonymous Collective, and it's brave for two reasons. First of all, how do you get sources? Everybody's anonymous. How do you reach out and interview people? And second of all, if you say something they don't like, you know, now you have Anonymous coming after you.
Yeah, right. It was fun. It was kind of a roller coaster ride writing that book, the Anonymous Hacktivist Collective. People who I was interviewing were getting arrested left and right, and it was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking. There was always the possibility, as you say, that the people who I was writing about could have launched a cyber attack on me or hacked me, but it never happened. And I kind of tried to just tell the perspective of the guys who were involved in hacking people like Sony or Senate.gov. Tried to be as objective as I could, and in the end, they didn't hate me for it, so I guess that was good.
Well, you've got a lot of guts, and I really appreciate you writing that book and also coming on as our guest co-anchor today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Well, you can subscribe to Tech News Today on Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, RSS. So many options. Choose your favorite at twit.tv/TNT, and follow us on Twitter. Tech News Today TV is our Twitter name, and please send us your thoughts and opinions. Send email to tnt@twit.tv. or call us and leave a voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. Don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific tonight, and every weeknight right here on the Twit Network. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.